Hello, everyone. Welcome to UC Berkeley. My name is Kristina. I'll be your moderator for today's virtual visit. Before we get started, I'd just like to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. I know there's a lot happening in the world and a lot of different circumstances depending on where you are right now, and we really just appreciate taking an hour out of your day to be with us. So thank you for that. And with that, I'll quickly talk a little bit more about myself. As I said, my name is Kristina. I use a she, her, hers pronoun series. I'm from Whittier, California, which is in Southern California, so like 5-6 hour drive from Berkeley. I'm a third year in the College of Engineering, studying industrial engineering and operations research. And yeah, I'll be your moderator today. So I'm here at the beginning, and then I'll pop up again at the end of the tour to moderate the Q&A section. So to talk a little bit more about the tour, actually, before the tour, I'd just like to give a really quick congratulations to Berkeley's newest Nobel Prize winners. This year, 2020, we've won 2 Nobel Prizes, one in chemistry and one in physics. So we have Professor Jennifer Doudna with the 2020 Nobel in chemistry, and Professor Reinhard Genzel with the 2020 Nobel Prize for physics. And I actually have friends who have taken classes with both of these professors, so it's really, really cool that every year we're kind of up for various Nobel Prizes, and this year we were able to get 2. So something we're really appreciative for in 2020. But back to the specific tour logistics, this is going to be a 40 to 45 minute presentation with the slide deck, and our 2 tour guides will be going over a lot of content specifically for the College of Engineering. We have a regular virtual visit in case there's like specific information about other colleges, housing, dining, anything like that that you'd like to check out. And you could register for them at visit.berkeley.edu. But if you have any questions during those 40 to 45 minutes, you can type questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, and we'll either answer them throughout the tour, or we'll also have a live Q&A section for the last 15 to 20 minutes. We'll also have 3 polls pop up on your screen, so make sure to answer those so we can cater the tour towards people that are watching. And as I said, it'll be an engineering overview, different material than our virtual visit, and through the student perspective with no admissions or financial aid information. So if you need any admissions or financial aid questions answered, we would direct you directly to those departments so they can take care of those. And then, as I said, we'll end with the Q&A and I'll pop back on screen. So with that, I'll hand it over to our 2 tour guides for the day, Violet and Christy.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So my name is Violet. I use the she pronoun series, and I actually grew up in Berkeley, California, where I am right now. So I did not go very far for college. I'm in my 3rd year, but I'll be graduating this spring, and I study physical geography. A lot of my courses have similarities to civil engineering. I have taken most of the math and physics requirements that our engineers take. And some of the things I do on campus involve Cal Ballroom, our competitive Latin and ballroom dancing team. I'm involved in undergraduate research in the geography department that also has a lot of overlap with CIVI. And I am a member of a hiking group on campus, Chaos, Cal Hiking and Outdoor Society. And I also have some experience with a housing collective on campus called the Berkeley Student Cooperative.
Hey everybody, my name is Christy. I also use the she, her, her pronouns. I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and then moved down to California for college. I'm a senior this year, and I'm doing a double major in political economy and linguistics. On campus, I'm involved in Cal Club sports, so I play on the women's ultimate frisbee team. I do research through a couple different avenues. We'll talk about ways that you can get involved in research later in the presentation, but I have some experience with that. I am part of the clubs for both of my majors, so lots of majors have academic clubs. SLUGS is for linguistics, and then PISA is for political economy. And then I've done a bunch of different internships during my time at Cal. I also have quite a bit of friends, quite a few friends who are involved in engineering or who are engineers. So I hope to share stories throughout this presentation of like their experience and stuff that they have done, and I've kind of like done with them as well. So hopefully that can add a lot to this tour. So, to start, we're going to send out a quick poll and ask, who are you? We'd love to know who you are and be able to tailor this tour better to your needs. While you guys are filling out that poll, we want to give a huge welcome to UC Berkeley. We really hope that someday in the future we can welcome you to our actual campus, but in the meantime, here are some pictures and videos of things you might see while walking around the Berkeley campus. Specifically, that photo right next to 150 Years of Women at Berkeley, which is a celebration of 150 years of women being admitted to the campus. But that photo is of the Hearst mining building. And I love going in there with engineering tours because the interior is actually a recreation of how the building would have originally looked in 1912 when it was built. So this building is pretty old and it's gone through a bunch of different renovations. But back in the 90s, when they were looking to renovate it again, they actually did a historical renovation to how the building looked like back when it was originally built. It's absolutely gorgeous in there, and they use it for all sorts of celebrations and kind of events for engineering students. And I just think it's one of the coolest buildings on campus. So we just got the results in. It looks like we have high school seniors and high school juniors on this tour, which is fantastic. This is a great tour to go on. For our high school senior out there, the UC application was actually extended one day. So you still have a chance to apply to Berkeley if you have not already. For a high school junior, I can hope that you will get lots of information about the school and what schools you might want to apply to or majors you might be interested in on campus. So today I'm going to give a really quick overview of what we're going to be doing. First of all, we'll go into an overview of Berkeley, and then we'll dive into academics. So this is our engineering tour. So we're going to be talking about the engineering school specifically and what majors and academic opportunities are in our engineering school. Then we'll go back into student life and resources. So get away from the academics a little bit, talk about what your life would look like here. We'll go into labs and makerspaces opportunities, which are very important for engineering students. And finally, we'll finish off with research and legacy, which are both really important parts of our student experience and student life here at Berkeley.
So just to kick things off, a little bit of history about our campus. So Berkeley was founded way back when in 1868. A couple of years ago, we celebrated the overall 150th anniversary of the campus. And this year, like Christy mentioned, we're celebrating the 150th anniversary of women on our campus because unlike a lot of other schools that were founded around a similar period, Berkeley actually admitted women from the get-go. And that's something that we're really proud of. And we wanted to celebrate this year. It also means we get to have celebration of 150th anniversary twice, which is kind of fun. Berkeley was also the first school to be founded in all of the University of California's system. So because of that, we ended up with a couple of special rights and privileges. One of those is to go by a whole slew of different names. So you might hear us using Berkeley to talk about UC Berkeley. You might hear us say Cal, California, the University of California, or one of many different names. We are only one of 9 different schools in the UC system, all of which you will see on the same collective UC application. If there's one thing I want you to leave this tour with, it is to know that our mascot is the Golden Bears, and that the representation and embodiment of this is someone named Oski, who is a person in a bear costume, like many college mascots, but he's much loved and will be featured shortly on the coming slides. We do have a large campus. There's about 30,000 undergraduates on our campus, and about 4,000 of those are engineers. And then there's a whole nother 12,000 graduate students you do interact with quite a bit as an undergraduate. And about 2,500, 2,300 of those are engineers. So a sizable number of our graduate students are in the College of Engineering. We do have a very, very prominent presence in both graduate and undergraduate engineering programs and research. So definitely ask us any questions you have about anything I'm saying now or anything I say in the future using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, because in addition to me and Christy and myself, we have ambassadors on the back end who are just as excited to answer all of your questions about Berkeley's College of Engineering.
All right, so as Violet kind of went over, we have 5 different undergraduate colleges at Berkeley. So when you're in high school and you're looking to apply to the university, you're actually going to choose one of these 5 colleges to apply to. So this tour, obviously, we're going to be focusing on the College of Engineering and its 11 different engineering majors. We'll also talk a bit about the College of Chemistry, which houses our chemical engineering major, so the only engineering major not in the College of Engineering. The other colleges also could play a relevant role in your life at Berkeley. Some people will double major, some people will minor across colleges. The College of Letters and Sciences is our general liberal arts college. Both Violet and myself study in this college. The Vassar College of Natural Resources has environmental majors or majors having to do with sustainability. And then finally, our College of Environmental Design is our architecture school. So applying directly is the way that, the majority of students will obtain admission to one of these programs. There is an ability to transfer once you get to Berkeley in between colleges. Generally, it's easier to transfer between some and more difficult to transfer between others. If you're going from engineering to the College of Environmental Natural Resources, the Vassar College of Natural Resources, that might be an easier switch than going the other way, for instance. In general, the best advice I could give, if you're interested in chemistry or engineering, please apply as a high schooler, as it is extremely difficult to transfer into those schools once you are at Berkeley already. But if you do come in as an engineering or a chemistry student, you have some flexibility in switching to the other colleges that we have.
Yeah, thank you for that, Christy. So on to probably, some of the most important people that will be featured today. You can see Oski on the left side of the slide, much loved college mascot. So Berkeley's College of Engineering focuses, of course, on, engineering and academics, like every program at the university, but it is, as much of the university, also dedicated to sort of like a more collective and like holistic mission about making the world a better place. And I think that's pretty evident in their mission statement, which is on this slide, saying that their purpose is to transform the lives of students by preparing them to become successful leaders and innovators for positive change, and to expand their knowledge to create transformative technologies through original research and tackle the world's biggest challenges. So I think that's important to keep in mind, not only in the College of Engineering, but in every program at Berkeley. There is very much a sense that you should be using this education to do something positive for your community, and that's very much encouraged in the curriculum. In general, there's a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation and change making, but along with that of community and compassion, social justice, and there's a lot of school spirit that I think personally, at least for me, really results in that. Going to a place where I know that my classmates want to use their education to make a difference in the world and to do something positive gives me a lot of school pride. And so I feel pretty proud to see Oski over there on the left half of the screen. I don't know about you, Christy, but
Oski definitely represents the spirit and the pride that we have on the Berkeley campus. You'll see him in a couple other photos in this presentation. So we just sent out a poll right now, and we are interested in what you are interested in. So we're wondering what area of engineering that you might be interested in going into. Most of our majors will require you to apply directly to them. We'll talk a little bit about our engineering undeclared pathway later, but it's a good idea to kind of, throughout this presentation, be listening and think about what major, what department you might want to apply to. So in the College of Engineering, we have 11 different departmental majors. So all are ranked in the top 9 globally, which is pretty incredible. This really is one of the best engineering schools in the world. There is some opportunity to switch majors once you get into the college, although kind of like what I was saying before, it's a bit of a gray area. It's easier to switch into others than to switch into others. Some majors are easier to switch into than others. You can see kind of the breakup of the major distribution on the graph on the right-hand side of your screen. So as you can see, by far, electrical engineering and computer science has the most amount of students in it, and that will go all the way down to nuclear engineering. I have a friend in nuclear engineering, and he says he pretty much sees the same 30 people in all of his classes. So that's pretty cool. You get a smaller community feel, and you can see that there are different size departments for all the different engineering majors. So no matter what your major is, we have opportunities to do graduate school. I know quite a few friends of mine who are applying for graduate school right now as a senior. Sounds like a stressful process. I am glad that after I graduate, I've chosen to kind of do an industry pathway and then maybe do grad school a little later, because so I don't have to apply to grad school right now. But that's also a very common pathway. We have, we're right next to San Francisco, we're right next to Silicon Valley, like the Bay Area has a huge tech startup culture. I'm sure you guys already know like countless numbers of companies that are kind of based in this area. So people will do internships with them. Sometimes those internships turn into job offers. Going into industry, this is a great location to be at. And then finally, some people will go into research as well. We have a national laboratory that's attached to our school, kind of the Berkeley Lawrence National Labs. There's a lot of opportunities for research here on campus. And I have a really close friend in physics, for example, who is on a research team. And after he graduates, he's just going to continue with that research team. So those are all options for postgraduate plans here at Berkeley.
So in addition to some of those majors, we want to talk a little bit more about each one specifically. And we're going to start by introducing something called engineering undeclared. So for those of you who know that you're interested in engineering, but you don't necessarily know which particular branch of engineering, there is a program at Berkeley called Engineering Undeclared, which allows you to apply and be admitted to the College of Engineering without yet having to pick a major. This is kind of fun. The way it works is you have a seminar your very first semester where you get introduced to all the different fields of engineering. And then your first few years, you're kind of taking similar classes as most other engineers anyways. You're taking math and physics and chemistry and biology in some cases. And so you're able to just kind of continue down the basic path. And then sometime by the end of your second year, your fourth semester, you do pick any major in the College of Engineering. We generally do not encourage everyone to apply to this program because it is one of the most competitive majors in the College of Engineering. So if you're like pretty certain you will probably want to do mechanical, you should apply to mechanical. If you're somewhat certain you want to do EECS, you should apply to EECS, Electrical Engineering and Computer Science, because that just makes it a little bit easier for you to potentially get into those programs. I also want to talk a little bit about nuclear and bioengineering. These are some really cool programs that Berkeley has, but not a lot of universities have undergraduate programs in, especially in the case of nuclear engineering. So that building you can see on the middle of the slide is Echeverry Hall, and down at the bottom of that, not so long ago, there was in fact a educational nuclear reactor. It is no longer there, mostly due to the fact that it was really difficult to maintain and it required a lot of expertise, and the professor who ran it chose to retire. But there is still all sorts of interesting laboratory work going on in nuclear engineering. I have a friend who's a grad student in Nuki, and he does really, really interesting work studying the sort of like after effects in the ecological effects of the Chernobyl reaction. And so he's done a lot of travel to Russia and to Ukraine, and he's written some really, really interesting kind of like policy papers in addition to his more technical research. So there are all sorts of interesting opportunities to go into the policy realm of things if that's something that interests you as far as nuclear engineering, in addition to our wonderful technical professors and courses in the area. Of course, Berkeley also teaches bioengineering. On the bottom right, you'll see Stanley Hall. That is, in fact, the building in which Jennifer Doudna, one of our most recent Nobel Prize winners, has her lab and offices. I have another friend who actually works as a lab tech in her lab, which is pretty cool. And this is the very same building that all of the bioengineering students are going to be taking a whole lot of classes in. I personally love Stanley Hall because it has one of my many favorite coffee shops on campus inside of it. It's a really lovely building, lots of trees, lots of courtyards, and highly recommend if you're interested in bioengineering.
I agree. I'm so jealous of those bioengineering students who have such a great access to Yali's Cafe and their amazing sandwiches. So to continue on here, I'm going to be talking about civil and environmental engineering. So civil and environmental engineering deal with data, natural environment structures, and then obviously we'll also go into kind of sustainability, infrastructure, and control systems. Those are a lot of buzzwords. I'll tell a really quick story. I have a close friend who's a civil engineer, and she is required during her first year, I think most civil engineering students will take this class their first year, to do a class that has a concrete lab. So they do this entire lab series where they mix different types of concrete and learn about the history of concrete, and they'll end up doing different projects and testing, and it's a really fun hands-on way during your first year to kind of get involved in civil engineering. So yeah, I went hiking with her a couple weeks ago, and she actually could like identify the different kinds of concrete that were being used in the trail. So that's maybe something you would do as a civil engineer. Mechanical engineering will deal more obviously with like machine design, application. In the basement of Hess Hall, which is our kind of like mechanical engineering powerhouse, usually I'll take my engineering tours down there, and you'll just see like machinery everywhere. I actually lost my tour once, my tour group in this hall, and I spent like 10 minutes walking through all this machinery. There's multiple floors, and I was like, guys, where'd you go? And it turns out one of the mechanical engineering professors had kind of stolen my tour from me and started explaining his research and showing them all the machines. And I was like, oh my goodness, okay, so now I don't let anyone leave my site in the mechanical engineering labs. But that was kind of a fun story, and it really goes to show the sort of hands-on work in the machine building and the lab capabilities that we have here at Berkeley for mechanical engineers.
That must have been a fun and exciting day for your tour group. I also want to talk a little bit about our programs in the engineering sciences. So if you're someone who loves engineering, but you also are maybe interested in research, or you have sort of like you want to go at it from a theoretical perspective, these are really great programs to consider. They're not offered at very many undergraduate, many undergraduate contexts. So our programs in the engineering sciences are a little different than the regular engineering majors because they're not ABET accredited. So that doesn't mean they're not legitimate degrees, but what it means is that they don't give you an automatic license to practice engineering professionally after you graduate. That's not really a problem because if you go to Berkeley and you take the ABET exam, you will pass and you will receive that license. You're going to learn everything that you need to know. So it's kind of just a technicality because, you know, not enough schools offer these majors for them to be officially licensed and accredited. So those programs include energy engineering, energy math and statistics, engineering physics, as well as environmental engineering sciences. And they give you a really great option to kind of combine really practical engineering coursework with a little bit more theoretical courses in, you know, math or sciences. And they can be really great backgrounds for starting a research career or a professional career in a whole different variety of disciplines.
Yeah, for sure. I have a couple friends in kind of engineering science, and they really say that like these programs are super unique to Berkeley. So finally, or not finally, but we're going to continue talking about our engineering majors with our largest engineering major, which is electrical engineering and computer science. And you'll hear this kind of colloquially known on campus through the sort of acronym EECS. So people will say, oh, I'm an EECS major, or my EECS classes. I'll continue to say electrical engineering and computer science just to make sure we have clarity though. So essentially, this is a combination degree between obviously like computer science and electrical engineering. You'll really get into the nitty gritties of like technical problem solving. There's a lot of work to go into, a lot of opportunity to go into industry here, both through kind of like hardware and software engineering. You'll be doing a lot of computer science classes and just different kind of circuit work, electronic work, all this different abilities to do both hardware and software, kind of that side of engineering. And so we'll continue on to the next slide because this is a question we always get, so much so we decided to just make a whole slide about it to explain. So we have a computer science degree as well, and this is a Bachelor of Arts in the College of Letters and Science. So this is the college that I am a part of. The electrical engineering and computer science degree is a Bachelor's of Science, and this is in the engineering college. So when you apply to the College of Engineering, you'll be directly admitted into the EECS major, as opposed to the computer science major, where you'll be admitted into the College of Letters and Science, and you'll spend 2 years doing pre-required classes before you end up declaring computer science. So that's the sort of difference. You go in knowing exactly like you're going to do electrical engineering and computer science versus you have 2 years to explore and see if computer science is right for you. Electrical engineering and computer science will do both hardware and software, as I talked about on the previous slide, while computer science is really just software focused. And then another kind of big difference is the breadth courses you'll be taking. So with a Bachelor's of Arts, you'll be doing kind of like history classes, social science classes, maybe like arts classes, different kind of breadth requirements that allow you to get a liberal arts education. You have a few of these in the engineering college. You'll be doing a couple different requirements for like a history, a social science class, but they're fewer and they're not kind of as widespread. So you'll be doing more classes like in your major as opposed to your Bachelor's of Arts will be doing more classes kind of outside your major. So those are kind of like the big major differences that we want to stress. It's kind of a complicated issue. So if you have any questions, please write them in the Q&A function. We have people on the back end who are really excited to answer your questions. And we'll also have a live Q&A at the end of this where we can answer your questions. So please type questions into that Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. Do ask all your questions. That's why we're here to answer them. So some of the other things offered in the College of Engineering include joint majors. So this is a little bit different than a double major. It's actually the opportunity to get a combination of the degree programs that are in 2 different engineering majors and not have to complete the entire set of requirements for both majors independently, because that would be really, really difficult. I'm not going to say it's not possible, because anytime I've ever said that to someone on a tour, I have then gone on to meet a Berkeley student who has done it, because people do crazy and incredible things on this campus all the time. But I think joint majors are a little bit more common than double majors themselves within the College of Engineering. This might allow you to get a degree in both, bio and mechanical engineering at the same time, which could be super useful if you're interested in learning how to do create artificial bone things for medical purposes. Or you could do a joint major between materials and mechanical, and that could obviously be super useful for designing all sorts of different kinds of materials that have different mechanical properties. There's also minors in the College of Engineering, which you don't even have to be in the college to do. So I considered doing an environmental engineering minor for a little while, and I totally could have done that, even though I am not a student in the College of Engineering itself. And in addition to that, there are also some certificates. So if you want to study something like design innovation or entrepreneurship, there are all sorts of cool courses on those specific programs that you can just tack onto your major, get a little extra something, put on your CV, and have a really interesting kind of foray into the world of business or entrepreneurship or startups or whatever it is that you want to learn about. And then one last program that I want to mention is something called the MET program. So MET stands for entrepreneurship and management entrepreneurship and technology. And this is another way to get something called a dual degree. It's a little bit different than a joint major, which is a little bit different than a double major, but these are all kind of technicalities between business and a program in engineering. So MET is really highly selective, and it allows you to study both in Berkeley's College of Engineering and in our Hall School of Business, and to graduate in 4 years with a dual degree. So it is a very heavy course load. It is a challenging program, but it also pairs you with people who are CEOs at startups in Silicon Valley. It provides you with mentorship and internship opportunities. And it's a really amazing way to study engineering and business, both very rigorously for a 4-year program. So I definitely recommend applying to this if that is of any interest to you, especially because in the way the admissions process works, if you're not admitted into the MET program for mechanical engineering, or you're not admitted into the MET program for bioengineering because it is specific to the major, you automatically have your application re-entered into the general pool of applicants for bioengineering or materials engineering or mechanical engineering or whichever MET program you applied to initially. So it's really no penalty for applying to the MET program. If it's something that you're interested in, you should definitely check it out. If you're not admitted and you are admitted to the College of Engineering overall, you still could totally pick up a minor in the School of Business. You could take courses in economics. You could join consulting clubs on campus. There are still lots and lots of opportunities for you to engage in those same activities. This isn't the only way to do that, but it is one of many really cool ways. And I also just want to shout out the poll results. I see we have people joining us from at least 4 different time zones today. So I said good morning at the beginning of this tour, but I should have said hello because it is obviously not morning for many of you guys. So thanks for being here, whatever time it is for you today.
Yeah, as you can see, one of the biggest advantages of going to a large university like UC Berkeley is just the sheer amount of programs you can take advantage of. We do have so many opportunities for our students here. So we're going to go into College of Chemistry now, the College of Chemistry. This is one of our smaller colleges on campus with about 1,000 students. Like I kind of said earlier, you choose which undergraduate colleges you're going to apply to. So this is another college where you will apply directly, and not only will you apply to the college, you'll apply to a major. So there is 3 majors in this college: chemistry, chemical biology, and chemical engineering, which is why we're talking about this on the engineering tour. So you'll apply directly to one of these majors. And, we have one of the best engineering schools in the world. We really have one of the best chemistry schools in the world. We are ranked #1 globally in chemistry. We've done so many things in chemistry that are really unparalleled in, the world of academic institutions. 16 elements have been discovered on the Berkeley campus, which I recently heard from a fellow tour guide is about 10% of the periodic table. So, really like a whole big section of the periodic table. You can thank Berkeley scholars and professors and researchers. 3 of those elements are kind of named after people on our campus or the campus itself. So we have Berkeleyum, Californium, Seaborgium was named after one of our professors. There's a couple others. Laurentium, Professor Lawrence was a professor on our campus as well. So if you go to the student store ever and you're a big chemistry nerd and you want to just like show that Berkeley pride, but also show you love chemistry, you can buy a t-shirt with the Berkelium element on it that says UC Berkeley. And I see people wearing those everywhere. And I think it's just the coolest thing. We've done a ton of other chemical chemistry research. And, as you heard at the beginning, we just won the 2020 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. So if you're at all interested in chemistry, this is one of the best schools that you can attend in the whole world for this discipline.
I can absolutely echo that, Christy. I mean, I think my favorite thing about Berkeley, well, I have a lot of favorite things, but I think one of the most incredible things is just like the unparalleled academic rigor and the unparalleled rigor of the research. And building off of that, I want to talk a little bit about like our course structure and like how does that fit into a research university where your professors are all actively involved in, world-class investigations of like some of the greatest questions of our lifetime. So one of the ways that works is we spend a lot of time with people called graduate student instructors or GSIs. So often if you're in a large class, you have your lecture a couple times a week, and you might be with up to a couple hundred students listening to the professor lecture on different material. They do usually take questions and you can ask questions and such. But in addition to that, you're always going to have something called section on the side led by a GSI or graduate student instructor. Typically, that is a PhD student in whatever department you're taking the class in, or if the class is like interdisciplinary in some way, it might be, maybe it's a sociology class and your GSI is a PhD in history instead, but something similar. They have a lot of expertise in the course content itself, and they're usually an amazing resource. So there's going to teacher section, which is often where you will go over homework assignments, you might take quizzes, you might discuss the readings. Depending on what kind of class it is, though, your section could take all sorts of different formats. When I took multivariable calculus, it was really just like a place to turn in our homework, take the quizzes, and then review the lecture material. But when I took Spanish literature courses, it was a place where we had these like in-depth philosophical discussions about, what the texts are talking about, their context, the authors. Or if you're taking a chemistry class, it looks like an actual lab section where down like in the bottom right, you might see people all in their lab coats doing actual hands-on experiments in the lab. So there are all different ways that section can happen, but it is an instrumental part of your courses on campus. So please don't be afraid that just because there are 200 people in your class means you're going to always be in this giant classroom with 200 people and you're never going to know anyone, because typically sections are much more like the average high school class size, and a lot of times people don't come to them. So realistically, on an average day, there's going to be like 10 to 20 students in your section, which is pretty great because it means that you can have this really personal relationship with all the people in that class. You really get to know them. You get to know your graduate student instructor. I made a lot of really good friends in section, and it's nice because then, you have someone to sit with and lecture, and it's just sort of like a nice way to get to know people in a much smaller and perhaps less intimidating setting. That said, though, I don't want to imply that like every class on campus is giant, because that's just absolutely false. I mean, the majority of our classes have fewer than 50 students, and it really, really is dependent on your major. So I'm a geography major. I have never taken a class for my major that had more than like 40 students. So yeah, I don't have a ton of experience with large classes other than the classes that I've taken outside my major. So it will just depend a lot on what you study. And in general, students tend to take larger classes earlier on in their undergraduate career. And as they get more specialized, their class sizes get smaller. So that's a pretty typical progression. And then over the course of all 4 of those years, there are lots of resources to support you, including our Student Learning Center, which is a place where students who have taken the very same classes as you, gotten A's, done super well, excelled, and decided to go back and tutor for them can be found. So you can go to the Student Learning Center, sit down with one of these tutors, and they are incredible resources. There's also free tutoring in all of Berkeley's residence halls multiple nights a week. So there are all sorts of ways to get resources that are beyond that of your professor, your graduate student instructor, and the mandatory office hours that they're required to hold. And of course, we also have academic advisors. So in engineering in particular, there are a whole bunch of different layers of advising. Not only do you have your professional academic advisors, but there are also peer advisors who are all other students in the College of Chemistry or engineering who have taken the same classes as you and really know what they're talking about. And in addition to that, there are faculty advisors. So if you are in the College of Engineering, you do get matched with a faculty advisor who you can change and pick as you figure out who your favorite professor in the department is over the years. And so you have just so many different resources in terms of tutoring, support from other students, support from your faculty, support from your graduate student instructors, and support from anyone who you find yourself in class with. So lots of great layers there. And again, please continue to shoot us any of the questions you might have about anything at all down in the Q&A. Our backend ambassadors are very, very happy and excited to answer all of your questions.
All right, so moving into student diversity. So we have a couple different programs that really emphasize student diversity in the engineering school and also give, diverse students a place where they can feel comfortable and meet other people from the same backgrounds. So we have a Women in Engineering, a Science and Engineering theme program, which is actually kind of like a living learning community. I believe it's in Stern, which is our all-female residence hall. So you'll live on a floor of other women engineers and scientists, STEM students, and kind of develop a community. I believe you also have some sort of like seminar you take together and you sort of do events together. So it's a really cool way to sort of like integrate your campus living experience with your academic experience during your first year at Berkeley. We have the Black Engineering and Science Student Association. And we also have the Hispanic Engineers and Scientists, so sort of like identity-based groups for engineering students that have a lot of networking opportunities, internship opportunities, different kind of social events. EOP STEM is a big program. EOP is the Educational Opportunity Program for kind of low-income and first-generation students on campus. So they have a big center for all students, but they also have kind of a smaller group specifically for engineering and other STEM students. And then the pre-engineering program aims to sort of bring unrepresented students in the engineering program to campus before they apply and show them engineering, pair them up with a Berkeley student, kind of mentor them through the application process. So if you are applicable for that program, I'd highly recommend taking a look. It seems like a great way to get to know Berkeley engineering if that is something that is more difficult for you because of your background.
Yeah, thanks for that, Christy. Those are all super great organizations. And I have a lot of friends who've been involved and benefited from like the EOP program, for example, offers a lot of great resources in terms of making technology or tutoring or financial aid available to students who might not have access to it otherwise. So some of the other activities and groups we have on campus include our club and competition teams. So as you can see, we are very proud of the fact that Berkeley has won multiple steel bridge, concrete canoe, solar car competitions over the past few years. Lots of engineers love to get involved in these particular groups on campus. There are all sorts of fun ways to compete against other schools, to compete within our school, and showcase your very finest engineering skills. A lot of these groups also get to travel to different competitions that may or may not be out of state. So that's kind of a fun excuse to get Berkeley to finance your trip, perhaps at least in part, and then go compete against these other schools and, crush them and show them how amazing Berkeley is. There's also Cal Hacks I want to give a shout out to because it's not necessarily as hands-on as the rest of these programs. It's kind of the equivalent of like a student competition for computer science. So it's basically a giant hackathon that happens every year, and students are encouraged to create their own independent projects. It's really, really cool, and there are all sorts of awesome prizes that come out of it. So if you're interested in things like hackathons, competition teams, there are so many opportunities for this on campus, and they're not just the ones that are listed here. I mean, I've participated in hackathons on campus. I don't know if you have, Christy, but they're like a big thing and they happen all the time and they're on all sorts of different topics.
Made it my personal goal to never learn how to code during my time at Berkeley, and so far it's worked out. I have different career goals than a lot of my friends. A lot of coding and tech is like a big part of our campus culture. So I'm actually a little bit unusual that I have never participated in a hackathon, but I've had friends who've done it, and it looks like great fun. So I'm going to go on to the labs and the makerspaces. I actually live pretty close to Jacobs Hall, which is like this kind of beautiful lit up building that you can see. So I'll walk past it when I go to campus in the morning. It's absolutely gorgeous in there. But I'll start at the top of this list. So Sudarjudai Hall has the Citrus Center, which is a research group that is aiming to produce real life solutions, real life engineering solutions to problems. So they're the kind of groups who are going to do things like engineer new ways for communities in rural areas to have clean water or have access to internet or electricity. So it's a great group to get involved with. They have a lot of student research positions. That's coming up. We'll talk about all the student research positions. So Jacobs Hall, this holds our Institute for Design Innovation. So this is one of our biggest makerspaces on campus. We have a couple different makerspaces, of course, for such a large university, but this is really the whole building. We have, various kind of like laser cutter, 3D printing machines, like all these different machines that you might need when creating a project for your class. Students will purchase a pass to this makerspace, sort of like buying a textbook, but you kind of like buy a pass to the makerspace. Some classes will require that, and you'll use that to kind of finish your projects for the class or do various assignments for the class that are more kind of like hands-on learning. A couple like girls in my Frisbee team, for example, would make like stickers or little cutouts because you do get like an unlimited access to this area when you have the pass. So the girls who were in engineering makerspace kind of majors would make us like stickers and 3D laser cutouts, and I have a couple of them that we would like paint together as a team. We have, I mentioned this before, this is the place that I lost my tour group in, but in the mechanical engineering machine shop, there's so many machines down there, so much so you can get lost. So that's a great place to get hands-on work if you are in the mechanical engineering program or you're simply are working with machines for part of your classes. Davis Hall has the engineering construction bay, which is absolutely enormous. It's pretty mind-blowing when you go in there. It's one of the largest construction bays in the East Bay, or actually the whole Bay Area. So a few years ago now, I can't exactly remember, maybe like 10, 20 years ago, we actually did repairs on the parts of the Golden Gate Bridge in our machine shop. So that's kind of cool if you're going, walking to class and you're seeing like parts of the Golden Gate Bridge being repaired in, the machine shop attached to your lecture hall building where you have your lectures. And then finally, the Richmond Field Station is a big piece of land that UC Berkeley owns. It's a bit of a drive from the campus, but they have some buses and shuttles. And if you're doing something like setting a rocket off, or you're doing a big outdoor project like you're creating a solar-powered car, for instance, and you want to go test it out at the Richmond Field Station, that's available for our students who need a little bit more space. The Berkeley campus is fairly urban, though we do have a lot of trees and it's kind of like a park-like atmosphere, but we don't have a place to like set off a rocket. So we do have like this additional land that you can use as sort of an outdoor makerspace for bigger projects.
I'm guessing you need some sort of permission to just like go there and set off a rocket, but that's a really good point, Christy. There are all sorts of cool things that go on there. I took a field class in geography, and we did some sediment coring at the Richmond Field Station. So basically we like took these giant metal tubes and like hammered them into the ground and hauled up a bunch of mud to look at and learn about how sediment coring works. So I'm really excited to talk about this slide because I, like Christy, have been super involved with undergraduate research on campus. The top left picture is my favorite photo in this entire slideshow because, well, A, it's OSCE, and you guys already know I love OSCE, but secondarily, this photo was taken outside a furnace in UC Berkeley's nano fabrication lab, where I actually had the honor of interning while I was still in high school through a program that was connected to my high school because I did grow up in the city of Berkeley. Standing about where OSCE is standing right now is where I first learned what floppy disks are, because this is a very antique piece of equipment that, does these amazing high-powered things, but the software hasn't been updated in like 40 years. So it still operates on floppy disks. But yeah, still works, still pretty great, still really interesting stuff going on in there. And I learned so much in that summer. And they have all sorts of UC Berkeley students that work in different positions in that lab. So I want to talk a bit about Urap as well, which is our undergraduate research apprenticeship program. This is one of the many ways that students on campus find research positions. It allows you to apply to up to 3 different research positions with different professors every semester. Those positions might be 1 semester long, they might be 2 semesters long, they could get extended. And if you're admitted, you might, the professor might ask you to for a little bit of an interview, or they might ask to see your resume, or they might just say like, hey, great, okay, you're in. And then you are invited to join them on whatever research project they're working on. So for me, that meant studying fossilized pollen and sediment samples from up near Mono Lake. And my very first semester, when I was still 17, I had this amazing opportunity to take a field trip with my professor and then these 2 other PhDs and like camp in the field station at Mono Lake and go out and collect sediment samples with them. And it was just like so cool, and they were so smart and they were so nice, and they like answered all my questions. And it was really like one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had at Berkeley. And it's totally what led me to end up declaring my major, which is physical geography, the same department that my lab is in. We also, of course, have the entire network of Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. So just up in the hills, but next to campus, is a national laboratory. So lots of students and faculty are connected to the national lab in addition to the campus labs themselves. So there's this whole additional research infrastructure. So for example, my older brother also went to Cal, and he was working with a professor who did a lot of their work in the national lab. So he would actually get on the lab shuttles, he would go up into the hills, and his lab work wasn't conducted directly on campus like mine is, but instead in affiliation with the national labs. We have another national lab in Livermore. That's where a lot of our nuclear engineers spend time, because there is a lot of very nuclear related research that goes on out there. So these are also really great research opportunities, and they do involve undergraduates more often than not. Of course, involved in Citrus and in the same building is the Sutardja Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology. So they sponsor all sorts of cool undergraduate and professional and research programs, competitions, fun things like that. One of the things they sponsor is actually that internship program, which I was able to participate in while I was in high school in the Marvell Nanofabrication Lab. You can see it says the title down in the caption on the bottom left. But yeah, there's all sorts of amazing research opportunities, and they're not just in engineering. You can do research in the humanities and the social sciences and languages, really in anything you can think to do it in. It might be more structured or less structured. You can, do research with one professor for a semester, decide you don't like it and go do something else. It's just such a great experience and way to learn about different things, to get practical work experience. And I absolutely highly recommend looking into research on campus, even if you don't think that you necessarily want to go and get a PhD or go on to graduate school, because it's just such a useful and amazing opportunity.
That is such an incredible story, Violet. I was on like yearbook club in high school, so definitely don't need previous research with PhD students to get admitted to Berkeley. But man, that's such a cool program that we offer for high schoolers. And of course, like as an undergraduate student, you have advantage of working with these same people as well. So we're going to round off our presentation by talking about a few notable figures and alumni of our engineering school. I don't know if anyone else did this, but when I was in 6th grade, we were required to do a Rube Goldberg project where we were learning about transfers of energy. So I, did like the dominoes that like hit the car, that hit the marble, that like knocked over the glass of water, and we learned all about like, kinetic energy and potential energy. So Rube Goldberg was a Berkeley grad, and he kind of invented this like fun system that is sort of world-renowned in, various like humor videos, but also in like teaching kids about energy and forms of energy. Dean Lua is our current dean of the Berkeley Engineering School. She's actually our first female dean, which is very exciting to celebrate, especially since we're celebrating 150 years of Berkeley right now. Shafi Goldswater won the Turing Prize in Computer Science. There's no such thing as the Nobel Prize in Computer Science, where it's a little bit too recent of a field to have a Nobel category, but like this is essentially the Nobel Prize of Computer Science. It's one of the highest achievements that you can win. Another very exciting piece of Berkeley women in engineering. Steve Wozniak, I think it was mentioned earlier, he was a student at Berkeley as well. And just in general, we have amazing graduates of Berkeley. You'll see them scattered all over the startup culture in Silicon Valley, throughout big companies in the Bay Area, really throughout the entire world. You could wear a Cal sweatshirt and shirt. I was walking through the streets of Tokyo a few years ago when I was studying abroad in London last year. When I was in Washington, D.C. during an internship, you wear your Berkeley shirt and people yell, "Go Bears," from all over the world. So we have some pretty incredible alumni and notable figures. And, as a Berkeley student and a graduate, you're kind of going to be part of that community.
That could not be more true. So thank you so much for all of that, Christy. And I hope you guys found that tour at the least entertaining, if not also informative, preferably both. we asked that you now present us with any last questions you have down in the Q&A, and we are going to go into our live question and answer section, maybe respond to some of those questions that you asked along the way.
Yeah, thank you so much, Violet, for that introduction. And yeah, so we'll just get right into the questions. So the first question asked in the Q&A was, what percentage of your time is spent in lecture halls versus hands-on activities? So maybe Christy, with a little bit more experience than me and Violet, you can talk a little bit about this and just how your classes have been, how many of it is just like reading versus how many of it do you actually get to go out and like do hands-on activities? Obviously, it'll be a little different from the typical engineering student, but maybe you could give your perspective and what you've seen from friends in the College of Engineering.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, from what I've seen, like the engineering students actually have more opportunities than the average Berkeley student to do hands-on work, just because the nature of the work is hands-on. You know, when I study like theoretical political systems, I can't really like touch a political system. But when you're studying circuit boards, like you can definitely go out and touch circuits and build circuits and talk about them. So pretty much every undergraduate engineering course that's a large course that you like sit in a lecture hall for is going to have a lab component. So these labs are 3 hours long, which really allow you to get into some really like kind of nitty gritties of what you're learning. It's a lot of time, so you can build some kind of cool things in these labs. And then the other thing I'd want to say about this question is generally the amount of time that you spend on hands-on projects will increase as you get older. So during your first year as a first-year student, you may spend more time in a lecture hall learning the fundamentals as a Berkeley student. And then as you get older, your classes will get smaller. You'll be doing more hands-on work. You might, get attached to a research group. And then like when you graduate, you'll be doing, mostly hands-on work, mostly really small classes. So it does work in kind of like bigger classes that sort of move smaller as you get older and gain more expertise.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. Yeah, I think, as you get older, you get more opportunities for hands-on experience. And I think especially like even during this time, I didn't think that a lot of engineering students were going to get the opportunity to do hands-on experience through virtual learning. But I've had a lot of friends that get sent like lab kits to their homes, depending on what classes there are. I know we have far and few between, but we have a few outdoor classes, and I know one friend that's taking one of those and is in Berkeley, and it's a really, really small class. I think they've stopped, but for a couple weeks they did outdoor instruction. So there's a lot of opportunities to get that hands-on experience. A lot of opportunities during a regular semester, but even during a virtual semester, there's a lot of opportunities to do that, especially in the College of Engineering. So next question is, right here, what is there to do off campus, like in the city of Berkeley? So changing a little bit from academics, maybe Violet can ask this since you're from Berkeley and living like your whole life here, and you could talk a little bit about like what the scene is like in Berkeley and what there is to do maybe on weekends or when you don't have aren't studying for midterm/finals.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are lots of things to do in the city of Berkeley. I think kind of the most unique and fun part of it is that we have access to awesome nature facilities. So literally walkable from most of the dorms that are around in your campus is Tilden Regional Park. So there's this really extensive regional park network through all of the East Bay Hills. The geography of Berkeley is like kind of on a slant. At the bottom of the slant is the San Francisco Bay, and then at the top of the slant there's like the East Bay Hills, and then sort of all the way north and south through the hills is this giant extensive park network. You can walk up into it, you can walk up out of it, you can drive, you can take a bus there, you can bike if you want to bike up a really steep hill. And so there's just like so much space to go hiking. You can camp up there. There's a lake where you can go swimming. And so that's a really great place where a lot of students love hiking up and down the fire trails and the hills. We also have like 2 different amazing botanical gardens. If you are more into the sort of indoor or like urban scene, there are like 4 movie theaters within a 2-block radius in downtown Berkeley. There are lots of bookstores. I mean, it's a college town, so there's a lot of like fun places to see like interesting art films. We have different museums. And Berkeley is also super, super well known for its food. So Berkeley is kind of like the epicenter of the slow food movement. Our farmers markets are amazing. You can get like all sorts of amazing food on Shattuck. It gets, my personal favorite areas are a little bit further from campus, but I know tons of students who, you know, live right next to those areas and go and wait in the cheese board line to get pizza every single week because it's just the best pizza in the world. So yeah, food is definitely a great thing to check out. Of course, we also are like really close to San Francisco and Oakland, which are much larger cities by population than Berkeley. So if you're interested in, you know, doing an internship in like government or finance, these places have tons of opportunities. They also have, you know, even more sort of like museums and theaters and cultural centers. You can, if you want to go to the beach, you can like take the bus and like an hour out to the ocean side of San Francisco and go to one of those beaches that are like right on the ocean and like see the Golden Gate like 5 feet away from you. So there are all sorts of really beautiful scenic things to do. Because Berkeley, often the part that campus is around is like up in the hills, you get gorgeous views of these things too. So you can see the Golden Gate Bridge, you can see the Bay Bridge, and it's just really scenic and wonderful at night and during the day. I could go on and talk about this forever, but I will stop. There are just so many things to do, and it's a really beautiful place naturally, and we have really nice weather. And then there's also a plethora of cultural activities.
Wow, I love that, Violet. It made me just like remember all like the great places I used to love to eat and just like go visit when I was in Berkeley. And that kind of leads us great into our last question. So our last question we always end off our tours with is why our 2 tour guides actually chose to come to Berkeley. You guys probably had a couple different options when choosing. So just to let our guests know today, why did you guys choose Berkeley? And I know one person in the Q&A was asking, where is it? How classes were held in this pandemic. So maybe you can kind of squeeze that in there, right, somewhere during your Berkeley story. But maybe we can start off with Christy and why she decided to come to Berkeley.
Sure. I knew I wanted to go to a large school when I was applying to colleges. I went to a pretty small, like, alternative school in Seattle, and I was like, enough of that. Like, I want to go meet people. I want to go have all these opportunities. I kind of mentioned this in the tour, but like Berkeley just has so many different programs, from like study abroad programs to kind of like certificate programs to study and research groups. There's so many, and you know, it can be a little overwhelming, but to me that was like way better than having not very many, but like fewer options. So I wanted to go somewhere where there was everything. And really at Berkeley, everything is excellent. You know, this is the #1 public research university in the world. We have an enormous number of just like fantastic programs, you know, Nobel Prize winning professors, you know, departments, buildings. So being able to come to Berkeley and have like just this access to these excellent programs. And then at the same time, I knew I really wanted kind of like the traditional public American university. So I was looking at a couple private schools, and I did apply to a bunch of private schools as well. But I kind of knew in my heart I wanted to go to a place where like I could cheer on the football team with like, you know, 10,000 other students in the student section. I could wear, you know, the Cal hoodie all over the world and have people yell "Go Bears" at me, you know, in like Tokyo and London and Washington, D.C. It just like the kind of culture and the spirit that you get here on campus is indicative of any large public university that you'll get in the US. And, you know, it really does sometimes feel like you're going to college and your life is a movie. You know, we have that whole very traditional college experience and feel. So you have that, but at the same time you have, you know, world-renowned academics, you know, really just like the prestige that comes with the Berkeley name. So the combo of those two, like traditional public school experience and then the kind of world-renowned academics, that's a pretty rare combo. There's a couple other schools that do it, but I don't think any of them do it quite as well as Berkeley. So that's sort of like a very logical answer about why I came to Berkeley. Maybe Violet can add some more kind of like feelings and like, oh man, the spirit in the campus, but really I do miss it a lot. Online classes have been run very well. We are, you know, one of the forefront technical universities in the world. So we were actually having screen captures of our classes, and we were using online tools in our classes before the pandemic. So I know some of my friends who go to schools that are a little bit more traditional and behind are having a lot of a harder transition to online classes, where Berkeley professors are like, yep, we've been working with this technology for years, we got it. So I feel pretty lucky to be going to this school in this pandemic. And of course, we're doing a ton of research right now within the bioengineering and all of our labs and things like that. So, as a college student, I'm very lucky, to go to this school during this time and just during my 4 years here.
Yeah, I can't agree more with that, Christy. I think that, in terms of the pandemic, classes have transitioned very smoothly. Last semester, I was taking a class that was already webcast, and I didn't really feel like waking up to go to the lecture, so I just kept watching the webcast, and literally nothing changed about my experience with the class other than office hours had to go online. So it really has been a fairly smooth transition. I still have my weekly reading group with my lab. It just happens on Zoom instead of in McCone Hall. A lot of those opportunities have come really quickly. I went to Berkeley purely because it was the best academic option for me, and I could not be happier with that decision. Because of what Christy said, I found so much more than academics, and I really went in fully expecting to just get the academics, but I left with so much more than I ever asked for, than I ever bargained for, and it really has been an amazing experience. How much people care about what they do here, how much people love what they study, how excited they get, it's been an absolute privilege to experience, and I love Berkeley so much. And yeah, go Bears.